A 2-year-old girl disappears. Not for hours, not for days. And the person who should have been the first to call for help was the last one to say anything at all. When the truth finally started surfacing, it wasn't just a missing child case story anymore. It was something far more disturbing. A mother, a lie, and a story so carefully constructed that it almost worked. Today we're going to pull the curtain from the Caylee Anthony case, a story where the truth almost never came together the way it should have. In Orlando, Florida, a young mother named Casey Anthony was living with her 2-year-old daughter, Caylee Anthony. They were living in Casey's parents' house, George and Cindy Anthony. From the outside, it looked like a regular family situation. A child being cared for by her mother and grandparents. Nothing unusual. Nothing that would make anyone think something terrible was building underneath. Caylee was a happy toddler, often seen with her grandmother Cindy, who played a big role in her daily care. People who knew the family described normal routines, normal family life. But behind that normal surface, there were already small cracks. Casey had a history of lying about her life. She told people she worked at Universal Studios, talked about coworkers, even acted like she went to work every day. But that job was not real. It was a made-up story that no one properly checked at the time. And that detail matters later, because it shows how easily reality around her could be bent without anyone stopping it. Then came June 2008. On June 16th, Casey left the family home with Caylee. At that moment, nothing felt different. No argument was remembered, no warning, no tension that anyone could clearly point to. Just a normal day. A mother and her child leaving the house, and that was the last confirmed time that Caylee was seen alive. After that day, something strange began to happen. Caylee was not reported missing. Not the next day, not the day after, not even after a week. Time kept moving forward, but the situation did not change in a way that made sense. When Cindy asked about Caylee, Casey gave an explanation. She said Caylee was with a nanny named Zenaida Zany Fernandez Gonzalez. It sounded specific, like a real person with a real routine. And at first, that kind of detail can make a story feel believable. But days turned into weeks, and the story stayed the same. During this time, something else made people look back with confusion. Casey was still going out, still meeting friends, still acting like her life was normal. There was no public panic, no clear search, no visible behavior of a mother trying to find a missing child. And that gap between what she said and how she acted slowly became one of the biggest questions in the entire case. Then came July 15th, 2008. That is when everything changed. Cindy Anthony called 911. Her voice sounded shaken, not fully able to explain everything at once. She told the dispatcher she had not seen her granddaughter in 31 days.
There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee, Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
How long has she been missing for?
I have not seen her since the 7th of June.
That number alone changed the direction of the case. But she also said something even more disturbing. She mentioned that Casey's car smelled like there had been a dead body inside it. She told the dispatcher something that immediately shifted the entire tone of the call. Casey's car, she said, had been sitting in an impound lot after being found abandoned, and when it was opened, there was a strong smell coming from the trunk. Not just a bad smell, but something she believed smelled like a dead body.
My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
Your daughter admitted that the baby is where?
But the babysitter took her a month ago. My daughter's been looking for her. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. She just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself.
This wasn't a detail that came from an official report at the moment. It came directly through Cindy's 911 call in real time, as she tried to explain why she was now panicking and why she believed something was seriously wrong. And once those words were spoken, the situation stopped being treated as just a missing child concern. Officers immediately began tracking the car's location and confirming its history. The vehicle had been discovered earlier after being left in a parking area and then towed to an impound lot, where it remained unattended until George Anthony went to retrieve it. When she arrived at the tow yard, both he and the staff there noticed something they couldn't ignore: a heavy, unusual odor coming from the trunk, something strong enough that it stood out instantly and stayed in their memory. But at that stage, it was still just an unsettling detail, not yet connected to anything larger. It was only after Cindy's 911 call that this same detail took on a completely different meaning. Once she mentioned the smell of police, the vehicle was no longer just an abandoned car. It became something investigators needed to treat as potential evidence, and at that moment, it marked the beginning of the car being pulled directly into the center of the investigation. When investigators opened the trunk, they found garbage bags filled with trash and rotting food. On the surface, that could explain part of the smell, but it did not fully match what people had described.
George Anthony goes to retrieve the car, and as they approach the vehicle, an overwhelming smell is emanating from it, and it's coming from the trunk.
It was an odor could take your breath away.
I said it smelled like something had died in the car.
It was very potent. It was eye-opening.
Because the odor was said to be much stronger, it was more like something biological had been inside for a long time. Forensic testing was done on the vehicle. Air samples from the trunk reportedly showed chemical compounds that can be linked to human decomposition. Investigators also found a strand of hair in the trunk. This hair had what experts call a post-mortem band near the root, a detail that can sometimes appear after death when a body begins to break down.
It has a darkened band at the root portion of the hair, and this is consistent with apparent decomposition.
There were also chemical traces that some experts connected to chloroform. Prosecutors later used this as part of their argument, suggesting it could point to a possible attempt to make someone unconscious. The defense, however, strongly challenged this, saying the testing methods were not reliable and the results were being misinterpreted. At this point, the investigation moved from a missing child case into something far more serious. When police questioned Casey, her story began to fall apart under pressure. She repeated the nanny story.
You took Casey to a babysitter's house?
Yes.
And who was this babysitter?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Okay. You're telling me that Zenaida took your child without your permission and hasn't returned her?
The last person that I've seen with my daughter, yes.
But investigators could not find any real evidence that this nanny existed. The address she gave did not match a real working person. The apartment linked to that name had been abandoned for months. Then came another moment that stood out. Casey told police she worked at Universal Studios. She even took them there. She walked through the building, showing them around as if everything she said was true. But eventually, she admitted she did not work there. She had not worked there for years. That moment showed something important. It was not just one lie. It was a pattern of creating a life that did not match reality. Soon after, Casey was arrested. At first, the charges were related to lying and neglect, but as more details came out, the case became a first-degree murder investigation. Still, there was a major problem. there was no body. For months, the case stayed in this strange space where suspicion was growing, but proof was missing. Search teams looked everywhere. Volunteers joined in. But there was no clear answer about where Kaylee was or what happened to her. Then on December 11th, 2008, the case took its darkest turn. A meter reader named Roy Kronk had earlier reported something suspicious in a wooded area near the Anthony home. At first, nothing was found, but later he returned to the same area and again noticed something unusual. This time, police searched carefully. What they found was heartbreaking. In a wooded area not far from the home, they discovered the remains of a small child inside a trash bag. The body had fully decomposed. Only bones were left. Nearby, there was a blanket. Inside the skull area, investigators found duct tape. Some reports said it was near the mouth. Others said it may have shifted during decomposition. Because the body was so badly decomposed, nothing could be confirmed with absolute certainty about how it was originally placed. Later, the medical examiner confirmed the remains were Kaylee Anthony. The cause of death was ruled as homicide, but the exact method of death could not be determined.
With regret, I'm here to inform you that the skeletal remains found on December 11th are those of the missing toddler, Kaylee Anthony.
That word matters. Undetermined. It means investigators could confirm she was killed, but not exactly how. When the case went to trial in 2011, the prosecution tried to build a clear picture using all the evidence they had. The smell in the car, the forensic findings, the duct tape, the lies, and the 31 days where no one reported Kaylee missing. They argued that Kaylee was killed and that her body was later placed in the trunk before being dumped in the woods. The defense told a very different story in court. They said Kaylee may have accidentally drowned in the family swimming pool. According to them, what followed was panic and a cover-up, not murder. They argued that the prosecution was building a case on assumptions rather than clear proof. And this is where the trial becomes difficult to fully understand. Because in court, there was no single moment that clearly showed how Kaylee died. No witnesses who saw it happen. No confirmed medical explanation that could say exactly what caused her death. Even the autopsy could not determine a cause. The medical examiner ruled it as homicide by undetermined means, meaning she was killed, but how could not be proven. That one detail shaped everything inside the courtroom. During the trial, Casey Anthony never took the stand. Her silence meant the jury only heard two versions of events, both built on incomplete information. The trial lasted about 6 weeks in the Orange County Courthouse in Florida. The prosecution built a timeline around the 31 days Kaylee was not reported missing, the lies told to police, and forensic findings from the car and remains. Their argument was that Kaylee was killed, likely sedated and suffocated, and that her body was later hidden and dumped. But even they had to rely on connecting pieces rather than direct proof. The defense worked in the opposite direction. They said suspicion is not evidence, and challenged the forensic methods and conclusions presented by the state. Family members, including George and Cindy Anthony, testified during the trial. Their statements were emotional and interpreted differently by each side. Forensic experts also presented evidence about the smell in the car, possible decomposition, hair analysis, and chemical traces. But much of it was disputed, and nothing pointed to a single clear conclusion. Slowly, one reality became clear in court. This was not a case built on one strong piece of evidence. It was a case built on many pieces that never fully formed a complete picture. After weeks of testimony, closing arguments began. The prosecution said the pattern of lies, delay in reporting, and forensic evidence pointed to guilt. The defense countered that the state had not proven how the death happened, and without that, there could be no murder conviction. That argument stayed at the center of everything. On July 5th, 2011, the jury delivered its verdict. Not guilty of murder. Not guilty of manslaughter.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
Not guilty of child abuse.
As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
Guilty only of lying to police. Inside the courtroom, the decision was based off of what could be proven, not what was suspected. After the trial, attention slowly moved away from the courtroom and toward what remained. A private memorial was held for Caylee Mary Anthony. It was not a public event filled with media. It was quiet, personal, and focused only on her. A memorial space was created, and people who had followed the case left flowers, toys, and messages. For a brief moment, everything became about the child again, not the arguments. For George and Cindy Anthony, life after the trial was not simple. They had spoken during the case, answered questions, and gone through public scrutiny. But after it ended, they slowly stepped away from public attention. The case had left emotional damage that did not disappear with a verdict. After serving time for lying to investigators, Casey Anthony was released from jail. Soon after her release, she left Florida and moved to an undisclosed location. She stayed away from public life, and her movements were kept private because of ongoing public attention and safety concerns. In the years that followed, she remained mostly out of sight. No normal public presence. No return to everyday life in front of others. Just silence and distance. Later, she gave limited interviews and appeared in a documentary where she spoke about her life and the case. She said she still did not know exactly what happened to Caylee, and that the last time she saw her, she believed her daughter was safe. But even with time passing, the case never really left public memory. Because this was never even just about a verdict. It was about a missing piece of truth that never fully came together. And that is why, even today, people still go back to it, try to understand it, still ask the same question that never got a clear answer. What really happened in those missing days? And more importantly, was the truth ever really discovered? Or was it lost somewhere between the silence, the lies, and everything that never fully made sense?